AMARAVATI land pooling scheme, a scheme that has no parallels in the entire history of land procurement in the world in terms of its popularity, scale, speed and process transparency. It's a game changer for developmental projects across the country. In just 60 days, 28,000 volunteering farmers, 32,000 pooled acres, 29 villages, hundreds of public consultations, innumerable personal interactions, battery of officials. Hope for the future, passion for the state capital and absolute trust in the leadership. We present the silent revolution, the amazing story of AMARAVATI land pooling. State bifurcation left the residuary state of Andhra Pradesh with no capital of its own, with 13 districts, huge financial deficit and wounded emotions. Newly elected government's first challenge was to find suitable location for the new capital. Having the common capital outside the boundaries of Andhra Pradesh will lead to unimaginable administrative inconvenience. It was a crisis, but the leadership has the courage to convert a crisis into a challenge and an opportunity to deliver. The journey of developing the new capital started with identifying the most suitable location. The government had enacted APCRDA Act 2014 to identify and declare the new capital region and capital city and plan its construction. The area between Vijayawada and Guntur along the river Krishna was identified as the most suitable place for the new capital city. Its location is geographically central to the state, away from disaster zone of cyclones and floods. It's highly connected to the entire country through the busiest Vijayawada railway junction, National Highway No. 5 and Gannavaram Airport. The government had identified 29 villages of Mangalagiri, Tulluru and Tadepalli mandals of Guntur districts as the capital city area. The capital city was named as AMARAVATI. The government had notified 217 square kilometers area of the capital city as the people's capital. The 1 lakh population residing in these 29 villages were declared as the first citizens of the capital city, AMARAVATI. The villages like Tulluru, Velagapudi, Mandadam, Uddandarayanipalim, Venkatayapalem, Krishnayapalem, Rayapudi and other villages would continue to be a part of the new capital. True to the vision, the land pooling scheme has offered the opportunity to the farmers to be part of the development which they embraced voluntarily. Land pooling reflects the sense of partnership between the farmers and the government in developing AMARAVATI. Unlike in other forms of land acquisition, land pooling makes the participating farmer a part and parcel of development, a real beneficiary. The government had issued notification in January 2015 for this land pooling scheme. Through this, the government had established 26 land pooling scheme units in all the 24 revenue villages of the capital area. A senior officer of the rank of Deputy Collector was appointed as competent authority to head each land pooling unit. It is important to build a relationship of trust and confidence. These competent authorities have worked incessantly, bridging the aspirations of the farmers and the policies of the government. These officers held series of meetings with the farmers and other stakeholders in all these villages, creating awareness among them on the new initiative, the land pooling scheme. They clarified the doubts, assisted the farmers in understanding the scheme, handheld them in solving disputes, legal issues on ownership and enjoyment rights, worked with them in physically surveying the lands to resolve the issues on extents and survey numbers. They have resolved the disputes over assigned lands and waqf lands, removed encroachments and thus won the confidence of the farmers and people. Consultations and negotiations are the key components in the land pooling scheme. Honorable Chief Minister led by example as he personally held extensive consultations with the farmers. He unraveled his vision of AMARAVATI, made an appeal to the farmers to support the government in its endeavor in making Amaravati a reality and exhorted them to grab the opportunities that are set to come to them in future. He wanted them to be a role model by supporting the government in building the new capital. The officials, ministers, legislators and others have held series of meetings with the farmers and people at village level. They also held consultations with the family members of the farmers. Such consultations were held in totally free and friendly atmosphere at locations and timings of farmers' choice, like in the evenings and even night times when the farmers reach home of day's toil. The government had to pool an extent of 38,957 acres and 87 cents of land from the farmers under the land pooling scheme. After series of discussions among themselves, farmers decided to offer their lands voluntarily in land pooling scheme.
కుటుంబానికి 16 ఎకరాల మెట్ట ఎకరన్నర నిమ్మ తోట ఉందండి. మా పొలం మొత్తం మేము సంతోషంగా ఇచ్చేసి.
Excuse me, 7799 కార్ కింద ఎవరో పార్క్ చేశారండి. 7799 కార్. See, it's obstructing the CM's convoy. Can someone please get alert? 7799 కార్. Immediately అండి. 7799. Thank you.
చూడండి, మేము ఇంత సంతోషంగా మేము పొలం ఎందుకు ఇస్తున్నామంటే రేపు మా పిల్లల భవిష్యత్తుకి, మా పిల్లలకు ఉద్యోగాలు వస్తాయి.
They also held negotiations on the package that they would be receiving in return. The government had announced different packages to the farmers depending on the nature of land and extent.
అదే జరేబు 1100 residential square yards.
The government had decided to allot returnable plots in developed layouts. These developed plots would be allotted mostly in their own revenue villages. For every 1 acre of Jaripu land, farmers would get 1000 square yards of residential plots and 450 square yards of commercial plots in return. Similarly, 1 acre of dry land would get 1000 square yards of residential and 250 square yards of commercial plots in return. Farmers who want to offer their lands voluntarily in land pooling scheme will have to apply in Form 9.3. The officials would verify the title, extent with the revenue records, other details of the land provided through the 9.3 form. Then the farmers would fill another form 9.14 accepting to delegate their lands to the APCRDA for development of their lands. That would delegate the land to the APCRDA officially. The form 9.14 would also enable change in the use of the land. Finally agree voluntarily on the merit of the scheme.
అంటే 9వ తారీఖు కృష్ణావరం గ్రామం వచ్చి రైతులందరికీ దీని మీద అవగాహన కల్పించారు. అదే టైంలో మేము కూడా మా భూమి జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ గారికి అందజేయడం జరిగింది. మా ఇష్టపూర్వకంగానే మేము ల్యాండ్ పూలింగ్ కి మాకున్న 35 ఎకరాలు ఇచ్చేసాము.
Government announced 50,000 rupees and 30,000 rupees respectively for every acre of Jaribu and dry lands as the annuity towards their livelihood after pooling the land. This annuity payment would continue for 10 years with 10% of yearly increment. The annuity payment, number of residential and commercial plots that the farmers would get depend on the total extent of the land that each of them have given to the APCRDA under land pooling scheme. The option for obtaining returnable plots by farmers individually or jointly as a group was also left to the farmers. This has alleviated their concerns so that they could exercise options, choosing optimal plot sizes suiting to their economic and social requirements. For example, a farmer may like to sell a piece of land to fund his daughter's studies and retain a bit for his son's business. APCRDA walked an extra mile to make such options a reality. It was complex but was never a burden for APCRDA, as it always believed in farmers' happiness. Extensive options of as many as 991 different returnable plot sizes were prepared and master planned by the dedicated planners of APCRDA burning midnight soil. The plots opted by the farmers are handed over to the competent authorities through Form 9.18. The government notified the draft master plan for the capital city in December 2015. The plan was kept in public domain, published in newspapers and online. Extensive views of public and farmers were sought. Consultations were held with the farmers and the people on the master plan by conducting village-level awareness workshops. More than 5,000 different views were expressed. After due consideration of these views, the government notified the final master plan in February 2016. During the same period, village draft plans were prepared showing the residential and commercial plots that are offered to the farmers and were put on display in every village. The officials have taken into consideration all objections raised and all suggestions given by the farmers. Mostly, the objections of the farmers were related to the road-hit plots and on complying with Vastu principles. The officials also organized Grama Sabhas in every village to get acceptance from the people for the master plan and the layouts. The master plan and plot layouts were prominently displayed at all Gram Panchayat offices. Then, allotment of plots was the most crucial step in the land pooling scheme. It was carried out in the most transparent manner. Making use of technology, electronic lottery, plot allotment was done in the presence of people and elected representatives. The allotment was done through the electronic lottery, about which awareness was created ahead of the event. Conducting of trial runs was made mandatory before the final lottery is drawn. After sufficient number of trials with the consent of the farmers, the final run was made. The resultant plot allotment was conveyed instantly to the farmers through messages to their mobile phones. The same was posted on the APCRDA website. The land pooling ownership certificates, LPOCs, were also given to the allotted farmers on the spot. The plots were physically handed over to the farmers after peg marking.
ఆల్ఫాబెట్ ప్రకారం నేమ్స్ అందరూ ఉన్నాయండి. అందులో ఏమీ గ్యాంబ్లింగ్ అయితే ఏం లేదనుకుంటున్నా, క్లియర్ గానే ఉంది. హ్యాపీ.
మేము 2.5 ఎకరాల బోర్పాలెంలో ఇచ్చాము. మాకు హ్యాపీగా ఉందండి. రాజధాని భూమి ఇవ్వటం.
లింగాయపాలెం నుంచి ఇచ్చామండి. ఉద్దండాయపాలెంలో 2.5 ఎకరాలు ఇచ్చాము. లింగాయపాలెంలో 8 ఎకరాల వరకు ఇచ్చాము ల్యాండ్ పూలింగ్లో. ఇప్పటివరకు సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్గా ఉంది. ల్యాండ్ అలాట్మెంట్ అది ట్రాన్స్పరెంట్గా జరుగుతుంది.
వాళ్ళకి నచ్చిన విధంగా మార్చి 99% న్యాయం చేశారండి. అందరూ సంతృప్తిగా ఉన్నారు.
In 29 villages, 28,146 farmers have agreed to give 34,429 acres in the land pooling through 9.3 form. So far, 32,791 acres of land was given to the government. In return, 57,586 residential and commercial plots were given to the farmers.
మా తుళ్ళూరు గ్రామం అండి. నా పేరు మూల్పూరి రాంబాబు. నేను 6 ఎకరాలు నేలపాడు గ్రామంలో పూలింగ్కి ఇచ్చున్నాను. మాకు ఆల్రెడీ ప్లాట్లు కేటాయించారు. చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు ఫస్ట్ మొదలుపెట్టిందే నేలపాడు గ్రామం నుండి. ఆ రోజు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు వచ్చి ఆయన చేతుల మీదుగానే మాకు ప్లాట్లు ఇవ్వటం జరిగింది. మా పిల్లల భవిష్యత్తు కూడా ఎంతో ఉజ్వలంగా ఉంటుందని భావిస్తున్నాము. మా పిల్లల భవిష్యత్తు కోసమే మేము ఎంతో ప్రయత్నిస్తున్నాము. ఇంతకుముందు అమెరికాల ఇతర దేశాలు కానీ ఇతర స్టేట్లు కానీ వెళ్లాల్సి వచ్చేది. ఇప్పుడు ఆ ఇబ్బంది లేకుండా మా దగ్గర ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్లు వస్తున్నాయి. ఆల్రెడీ విట్టు కన్స్ట్రక్షన్ లో ఉంది. అలాగే సార్
It's my honor on behalf of this August gathering to invite the Honorable Chief Minister to this concluding session. It was the Honorable Chief Minister's vision that we do a session like this, and he's powered every action vis-a-vis AMARAVATI. Honorable Chief Minister, with your permission, I'll invite the other participant to the dais. We already have Minister Narayana and Minister Pullarao Garu joining us here on stage. I would invite the Chairman UIDAI, Mr. J. Satyanarayana, to please join Chief Minister on the dais. Principal Secretary Mr. Ajay Jain has also joined us here. I'd invite the Chairman and Managing Director of the Amaravati Development Corporation, Mrs. Lakshmi Parthasarathy, to just join us here on the dais. I invite Guy Perry, Senior Advisor McKinsey and Company, to join the gathering on the dais. I invite Pedro, Partner, Foster and Partners, to join us here on the dais. And I invite the Commissioner, CRDA, Dr. Sridhar Chekuri, to join us here on the dais. With your permission, sir, we will felicitate all those who have joined us here on the dais. Honorable Chief Minister, with your inspiration on November 8th, the entire CRDA ADC establishment gave us this opportunity to pull together a 2-day very intense workshop to really test against market realities the progress we made as Amaravati program, and also to get some input for the next 12-18 months. So this city continues to be on the path to be developed as one of the world's best cities of the 21st centuries. Honorable Chief Minister, we had about 70 speakers from over 40 companies join us over the 2-day deliberation. There were 11 countries represented here through these yesterday and today, including Singapore, China, US, France, UK, Australia, and the Middle East. We had about 16 panels deliberating various aspects of Amaravati program, and I'll go through that in a bit of detail, Chief Minister. And many organizations played a very pivotal role in ensuring that we have a very fruitful and involved discussions, including CH2M Hill, Octus, Terry. Yeah. May I just request people who are standing to the side to find a chair and make themselves comfortable. We have a long session, so it will be most comfortable if you take a seat. Thank you. So, Chief Minister, the way we had the 2-day deliberations was in the first day yesterday, we kicked off by actually the Principal Secretary, Mr. Jain, and the Commissioner, Mr. Sridhar, and Madam from Amaravati Development Corporation giving an exhaustive report of what has happened over the last 3 years in terms of development of Amaravati city. I must say, in conversations after those sessions, many of the speakers who have joined us for the first time were really impressed by the speed at which Amaravati is taking shape. In particular, people were amazed by how the land has been pooled with inclusiveness and with people involvement. They've been impressed by how you have set global standards on everything that is being done with Amaravati, and also they've been impressed by how much infrastructure and activity has already begun in the new city of Amaravati. Subsequent to those status reports, there were discussions on important themes to make the city a world-class city. The first discussion was visionaries, some of who are on the dais here, sharing their experiences from city developments from across the world, Singapore, Europe, and elsewhere. And we used those talks to really inspire the gathering about how they should think about Amaravati and how Amaravati should kind of be developed from here forth. Then, Honorable Chief Minister, we had the ministers come and give their remark. Both the Honorable Ministers here did join us yesterday as well to inspire the gathering, to think broadly, to think really hard about what needs to be done. And afterwards, in the afternoon, we broke out into a number of sessions on the infrastructure plan for Amaravati. We talked about what was going to happen with the government complex. We talked about what was going to happen with the water, sewage and stormwater infrastructure, roads and mobility, ICT, and power and renewables. All these were very involved discussion, high quality discussion with panelists from across the board challenging what was in store for Amaravati, as well as reviewing whether steps taken so far have been in the right direction. Honorable Chief Minister, one other important discussion we had was about the Happy City vision. This was, I think, among the most commented discussions that happened on Twitter, as the CRD had ensured there was a live Twitter feed from this event, a live YouTube feed, so a wider participation from across the state and elsewhere was possible. And the session that got a lot of commentary was on Happy City. I think that whole notion of a happy city has really gripped the imagination of a large section of people, and it was also a hot topic of debate when we had the session here yesterday. We also importantly spoke about governance, because a world-class city cannot be run with 20th century governance models. And here again, we had World Bank, Mr. Koo from Livable Cities, Center for Livable Cities from Singapore, really inspire us to think big about how we will modernize the governance as the new city is getting built. That led us to today, Honorable Chief Minister, where again we were joined by a cross-section of people, entrepreneurs mostly, because today's discussion centered around the economy we were going to build in Amaravati. And given the vision around the 9 theme cities, we really deliberated hard on 5 of those 9 cities, because some of them have taken shape, like the government complex or the administrative city, the justice city, and also the startup area have taken shape. Startup area, there was a specific discussion yesterday about how to really ensure it kind of really triggers the city in a very big way. So today we spent on 5 theme cities. It was health city, sports city, media city, the knowledge city, and also finally on the tourism city, or as we call Amaravati, the destination for leisure. So those were the 5 cities that we talked about. In addition, all through the 2 days, there was a lot of deliberation on sustainable development, sustainability of development. Finally, Honorable Chief Minister, just before you came, the early investors in Amaravati, SRM, VIT, Amrita, as well as the Singapore Consortium, were here talking about why they came here. And what resonated with the group, and I speak for this full audience, is that they said they had belief. They had belief in you, in the state of Andhra Pradesh, in Amaravati, that they were going to be part of history, and this is a privilege for them that they were able to join so early in the journey. And they had encouraged many people in this gathering who are also investors to join them and come to Amaravati in due course. So that's the sum and substance of all the deliberations we had, Honorable Chief Minister. We will give you a report by all of those sessions. As I said, sessions were between talking about livability, talking about infrastructure that we're building, talking about economic development and governance, those 4 big themes. So that's what we've done. We will, as I said, in a moment, go into a more a deeper report back with some of the panelists actually presenting it to you, Honorable Chief Minister. Before we go into that detailed presentation by each of the panels, we have a few things to kind of get past. I would invite the Commissioner, APCRDA, to come here and talk about a launch of a few very important tools that are in keeping with the way Amaravati is being developed. They're quite futuristic in their own, each one is quite futuristic in its own way. So I invite Commissioner to please come and do that.
Thank you, Shashi. Sir, as part of the minimal government and maximum governance, we are trying to build a public platform. That means a platform which can be utilized by everyone for the benefit of doing their business easy with the APCRDA. So as part of that, sir, we have taken 3 initiatives, sir, which would be like the foundation for all the future the interventions and the integrations that are going to happen on the technology platform of the Amaravati governance, sir. The first one is the entire the capital city is completely digitized and GIS enabled, and with your golden hand, sir, we want to launch the Amaravati GIS website, sir. So with that, each and every farmer and each and every utility and the infrastructure, both underground and the overground, would be made available to the public, and also the various the young people who further may develop their different applications based on our GIS platform, sir. And I request the Honorable Chief Minister to launch the Amaravati GIS website, sir. So along with that, sir, we also taken 2 more important initiatives, sir. With your direction, sir, we want to protect the data that is being built up in Amaravati as a foolproof, and we want to use one of the most talked about and modern way of keeping the data intact, that is the blockchain technology, sir. And I proudly present to you, sir, that this would be the first the land records in India, or maybe probably in the world also, that they have been linked to the blockchain, and every data relating to the farmers' plots or the public spaces, entire capital city details are blockchain and would be stored in the blockchain through the blockchain technology. So that ensures the safety and also the security and also the reliability of the data which would be available to not only the citizens of Amaravati but all the users of all the interested groups of Amaravati, sir. That is the second one we would like to launch today, sir. And the third one is again one of the most important milestones, sir, and the next step in your vision, sir. Now we have a 2D based modeling for the online building permit system, sir. So I would like to present to you, sir, the CRDA is the first urban local authority in the state to adopt, and we are doing the 2D model based building permit system for the last 14 months. And now we want to go to the next level, sir. So we want to develop, we already developed and maybe we are launching today, sir, a BIM based building plan approval system, sir. This is the next step in the development, where the developer or the residents or the builder, he would be submitting the data in a 3D model, which includes all their electrical lines and then their water lines, then sewerage lines. Within the building also they would be uploading it onto our website, and our 3D model data which is already available with us, sir, like the street level underground and overground infrastructure will be integrated with the citizen level and the plot level infrastructure, so that we will be establishing a seamless information system both for the public consumption and also for the private consumption, sir. Now we want to with this technology, sir, the builder or his any individual, he will put his entire 3D model of the building into our servers, and also the entire data will be integrated with us, and as and when the individual wants to use it for a purpose, say where to locate their electrical line or plumbing line or anything, so they can use our database, and also they can try to manage their assets very well, sir. And this will establish a clear platform for the future development, and also based on this we would be able to develop lot many applications which are citizen centric, and that is going to change the real technology phase of Amaravati, and really we will be bringing the minimum government and the maximum governance. Thank you very much, sir, and I request you to launch these three important initiatives of the Amaravati city, sir. Farmer name, then with this we will be knowing the farmer's name, their lat long coordinates, sir, and then who are all next to him, east, west, north, south, and their entire database is made available and is made now public to, sir. And next, next, sir, Amaravati. This is a blockchain technology, sir. All the data, all the GI data of the Amaravati is protected through blockchain technology, sir. And every certificate that is getting generated from the APCRD website relating to the GI, sir, will carry the entire log of the transaction, sir. And they can also verify through their any mobile also, they can verify it. That ensures the safety and security of the GIS data that is available with the CRDA, sir. Yes. Yes. సార్ ఫార్మర్ సంబంధించినంత వరకు సార్ తనకు సంబంధించినటువంటి ప్లాట్ అలాట్మెంట్ సర్టిఫికేటు, తర్వాత ద ప్లాట్ డీటెయిల్స్ సార్ అండ్ లాట్ లాంగ్ డీటెయిల్స్ కూడా మనం దీంట్లోనే పొందుపరచడం జరిగింది సార్. అలాగే బ్లాక్ లెవెల్ డీటెయిల్స్, టౌన్షిప్ డీటెయిల్స్ సార్. దీస్ ద బ్లాక్ చైన్ certificate, sir. And the same certificate is given on the application on each of the page, sir. By focusing our camera, mobile camera, automatically that certificate will be get downloaded, sir. That will ensure the safety and security of the database, sir.
Blockchain will act as an additional layer of security. Parallel.
So, is also included in here. The third one, sir, Amaravati BIM PS, sir. Currently, sir, we would be implementing it in the Amaravati city, sir. Then we would be upgrading. The clash analysis చేసుకోవడానికి అవకాశం పడుతుంది సార్ మనకి. అలాగే డిగ్గింగ్ చేసినప్పుడు కూడా మనకి విల్ నో ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ వేర్ ద లైన్స్ ఆర్ దేర్ సార్. సో అవన్నీ కూడా దీంట్లోకి మనం క్యాప్చర్ చేస్తున్నాం సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sir, we now have another announcement. During the last 2 days, a lot of discussion happened on sustainability, on conservation, on energy efficiency as the keywords for Amaravati to embrace over the next years as it develops. And I think there is a very important announcement to be made by the Principal Secretary Energy, Mr. Ajay Jain. I do request him to come forward.
So, Honorable Chief Minister, sir, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, sir. Well, I have a happy news to share, sir. Every year, Government of India celebrates Energy Conservation Week from 14th of December to 20th of December. And this year also it has been launched by His Excellency the President of India yesterday in New Delhi. And I'm happy to share that for the third consecutive year, Andhra Pradesh has bagged the award for National Energy Conservation, sir. In 2014-15, we got the award 15-16 and 16-17. All this has been possible due to your leadership and directions, and that what work we have done Andhra Pradesh as a state as a whole in distribution of LEDs, the energy efficient tube lights, the fans, then the replacement of all the lights in municipalities and all the urban local bodies, your agriculture pump sets, what we have started, energy conservation building code, and now in the Gram Panchayats, all the Gram Panchayats in the state, the street lights are being replaced and the work will be over in next 9 to 10 months. So this is the award. Now I would request Mr. Chandrasekhar Reddy, who received the award on behalf of the state designated agency yesterday, to show the award to the Honorable Chief Minister and take his blessings. Thank you.
Honorable Chief Minister, next agenda is to actually play back the deliberations from the 15 panels that we've had over the last 2 days. Honorable Chief Minister, given the time we have with you, we will request each panel to present in 5 minutes their key conclusions as well as their suggestions for Amaravati. We will obviously not be able to accommodate all the panel members speaking, but we will call on a couple of them to give the highlights of their panel discussion. So we'll start with livability as a theme, Honorable Chief Minister, and to talk about how to make Amaravati a happy city, what master plan, design and other interventions to make Amaravati a happy city. I invite two people from the panel. The panel had Monesh,
Mr. Koo, who's left for Singapore, Guy Perry and Purushottam. I'll ask Guy and Purushottam to please come forward and give a quick report to the Chief Minister on the deliberations of the panel.
Chief Minister, distinguished guests. We have the next slide. Okay. One of 15 areas, but we know this one's dear to your heart, and it is one of the key elements to the success, we believe, of AMARAVATI. Next slide, please. Next. We could pass to the next. So the key elements that we look at is health and well-being, education, housing. We look at the building of a community, connectivity of that community, and the security. These two things are very much interlinked. And then we look at work satisfaction. These are the key themes. Now, there are other themes as well. But for example, when we look at elements like health and well-being, we have to think of the city as a vehicle for helping people be healthy, for helping people feel like they're part of a community that makes them better every day. When it comes to education, we need a diverse educational offer for all ages, including those that are elderly, to re-educate, and including the use of the elderly to educate the young. And it includes the proximity of education. So it's not just about making significant facilities that may be 10, 15 minutes away by car, but something that is more built into the neighborhood. And that relates to housing. So the housing, again, we need a variety of offer for the housing, but the housing also has to comprise neighborhoods. So it's not about individual housing units, but it's about how we create social clusters in our housing complexes, and that includes elements like schools, parks, playgrounds that are part and parcel of the housing exercise. And that relates to social connectivity. So of course we have different types of social connectivity today, some of it virtual, but here I will speak more about that is more tangible. It is again about neighborhood building, it's about community building, it's about pride of place, it's about knowing your neighbors and being able to count on them. And there are certain ways that you can physically design environments to encourage that or discourage that. We have noticed a trend in India over the last decades to perhaps discourage that. We want to encourage that again. Security. Part and parcel of security is that sense of community. Yes, technology plays a key role in security today, but it's how those communities are shaped and how people care about each other that creates the most secure environments. And also when it comes to work, we want to be sure that the workplace is something that's very convenient, that people are not spending hours commuting every day, and that when they go to work, they work with pride because they're doing work that's meaningful for the future of the country, for the future of the world, and for the future of AMARAVATI. Now, there are other elements as well, sustainability, et cetera. These are natural components of development today, but I wanted to focus on those. My colleague Puru is going to talk more about the technology angle because of we're blessed with a region, in large part because of you, that is a world leader in technology. So absolutely, it will be this balance between creating a society that is based on many common sense principles and well-being principles, and the integration of technology that will make AMARAVATI a happy place. Puru, please.
Yeah. So, Honorable Chief Minister, one of the targets that we had was the population density that we are planning, 17,000 plus, will be more than many of the capital cities of the country. And one important principle that we wanted to pursue was the sharing of resources. Unless we have sharing of resources, or practically what in this modern world we call Uberization, we'll always have challenges in achieving our indexes on livability and happiness. And as we, maybe 3-4 examples that we discussed during the discussion was around Uberization, how we can actually implement. One example was on workspaces, and that was also a criteria that we have here. Now, sharing, as we are building up a complex of 10,000 plus employees as in Amaravati, the principle of sharing of offices has to be one consideration, because that's what is the denominator for energy consumption and resources as a part of everything. And I can say for sure, as an example through corporate as I've been, there is a way that all the 10,000 offices will not be occupied at the same point of time every day. And if we look at possibly the 70 to 60% or 80% occupancy in a way, and if the example has to be flowed from the top, you will have amazing efficiency coming into the office space itself, and that has to be even followed through in the, even as you are building up in the capital city private office spaces as well, by giving incentives that people should be adopting sharing of workspaces as a principle through same urbanization. The second example, while building up infrastructure, and we, Commissioner, completely agreed on that, is that as we are laying up the infrastructure for maybe optical fiber or the complete network, we need to plan more like a dig once policy. And the dig once policy says that the principle of sharing of resources has to be followed through while designing, while building up operations, and the business model itself has to be taken into consideration, that tomorrow it should not be like any other city, like any service provider is coming in one by one, digging the same road again and again, and then basically impacting the citizen's life. So one dig policy, as it has been adopted in few, even in US as well now, is that you lay infrastructure for once, there is an operating company which comes in, operates it, and shares it across multiple users as they come in. Another example was that usually in cities we have seen multiple agencies coming in, like there is a traffic light, there is a camera light, there is a camera pole, there are multiple utilities coming up and eating up into spaces of payments and public spaces. Why not we have a single utility pole which is designed for future? And while there is an opportunity now here that there is no other city in India actually which will be 5G ready, which would mean that you need to create assets every 200 feet which can give those services. Why not we create a city which is 5G ready from today and create a sharing through the same principle of multiple telecom, smart city assets, and utility services for future. And similarly, there is another example that we'll need to have, is that as we build up each and every assets across the city, both from planning, operations, the urbanization principle has to become the theme of the things, because that's if you do it later, then perhaps neither the design will support it nor the operations principle will support it. It has to be done from the very beginning.
And just finally, to reinforce this notion of balance between technology and the traditional nature of human well-being, if we look at an element like transport, for us, it's as much about the walkability and bikeability of the community as it is the next generation of vehicles, which may be shared, which may be driverless, which may even be drones. But it's getting those things right, making sure there's a balance, that we never lose the human dimension, the human-centric character to our design. So I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Minister, the other discussion on livability was on urban design. The panel there had Guy, Pedro, Dheeraj, Manoj and Gerald. I call Manoj and Gerald to just kind of come up and give their views on this panel discussion. I'm going to keep time, and I'm just going to make a note when it's 5 minutes so that you can wrap up.
Honorable Chief Minister, distinguished ministers, and everybody in the audience as well. For us, the topic was urban design, which is the underlying thread that connects all of the concepts that were being discussed over the last 2 days. Without good design, the city won't be identifiable and the people will not connect with it. So this was really the basis of the recommendations that we put forward for discussion. And our first question was, should we, given the changing context of all the different dimensions that are taking place, consider the design of Amaravati to be the same as other places or not? And the answer is very firmly no. While we needed to reflect on the changes, it was about creating connections. connections with the past, connections with the future, and creating a design code that really looks at all aspects of space, not just building, not just above ground, but also below ground, and making this a cohesive, livable environment. The second thing that we talked about within this topic was whether or not, how do we consider the changing trends of space and living. We talked about shared economies, we talked about co-living, co-working. And this has serious impacts on the way we think about the space we give up for infrastructure, cars. Do we need that much parking? Or should we be giving up space for other kinds of uses? And in this space as well, urban design has a very, very strong role to play. And the use of urban design to create spaces that bring forward the adaptable urban design that brings forward ideas that are rooted in today, but have an eye on the future. So we didn't want the urban design plans to be deterministic. We wanted them to be, to a certain extent, flexible, with frequent updates and reviews to be able to incorporate the changing nature of the way we live and interact. And this brings us finally to the way in which that we can implement these changes. Urban design is a very visual thing, and although we may write good codes, our concern was how do we implement these codes and enforce them in a way that allows people to appreciate the improvements that we are suggesting. So one of the strong recommendations was to set up an urban design authority that would keep tabs on what was happening and reflect on whether or not a change has to be made again to update those codes. And we saw today the inauguration of a BIM platform, a GIS platform. This common data environment gives us a great opportunity to help us visualize the city even before it's built. So to perhaps create an immersion center, a visitor center where people can go in and feel and experience the spaces, see how the materials that we are promoting can enhance the spaces that are going to be built. And through that, give people a vision of the future and a feel for the future today. So those were the kind of major points that we came up with in our urban design strategy discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monish. Honorable Chief Minister, the next session was on sustainability. The group that debated this was Zuza Kothari, Ramnath, and Rani Panikar, along with Sanjay Sethi and Chris Trott. I request Sanjay and Chris to come forward to just talk about the key highlights from their discussion. Thank you again. To keep to time, 5 minutes.
Honorable Chief Minister, eminent panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. The topic that was discussed within the group was on sustainability within the buildings sector. And what we discussed threadbare was how resource efficiencies could be incorporated right from the design to the operation. And how at the same time, while keeping the resource efficiencies in mind, how could we also keep affordability as a parameter for defining all of these? Because when we leverage on technology to be a part of sustainability, then the factor which really starts affecting it is cost prohibitive, being, technologies being more expensive. So we discussed all of this, and then we put in a plan as how do we go ahead and incorporate this within the planning process and the implementation process, so that all of this gets implemented in the right earnestness. Would you like to go ahead? Okay.
So, Honourable Chief Minister, Ministers, other dignitaries, colleagues. So our sustainability recommendations are that the green buildings and city sustainability parameters should be included in the zoning regulations and as a guide, guidelines in standards such that they are enforceable and mandatory, so they are delivered. That we want to see the development of minimum standards and KPIs for AMARAVATI to define new benchmarks for replication across other Indian cities, so as you lead the way. We'd like to see regulatory and fiscal incentives for promoting implementation of green buildings in the private sector. For example, additional FSI and relaxation of fees. Making Amaravati an affordable city through cost-effective, active and passive design strategies. Ensuring sustainability policy and regulations for Amaravati to go beyond buildings to neighbourhoods and to the city level, which will be supported by the initiatives at BIM and at GIS level that you've launched here today. And for Amaravati then to take a leadership role across India in the Sustainable Cities Alliance, such that all that you learn here can be fed back into other sustainable cities in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Minister, we will now shift to discussing the output from the discussions on the key infrastructure elements. The first among those was, of course, ICT and smart cities. We had a panel of Purushottam Kaushik, NSN Murthy, Raghunath Babu, Rajiv Vijay and Sri Satyanarayan Garu to really debate the plan for Amaravati and give suggestions. I'd request Rajiv Vijay and Sri Satyanarayan Garu to give a quick update to the Honorable Chief Minister on the deliberations in the panel.
Of course, sir is on the dais. Honorable Chief Minister, ministers and other dignitaries and colleagues. So this is one of the most important infrastructure component which any new city is looking at. It brings new socio-technological paradigm and comes with a new economic and business models. We looked at we have started our civil works and they are well on our way, and now it's the time to think about the smart infrastructure. So we debated about the core ICT infrastructure, the applications and processes and systems that go along with ICT infrastructure, and what architecture we should follow. And that architecture is both IT and ICT architecture as well as the governance architecture, which is also very important. So based on that, we made our recommendations, and our recommendations include, as Puru included in our Happy City recommendation, that we should aim to look at adopting 5G network technologies right from the beginning. As Sir sort of really put it in 1-2 words, that we should be born digital. And we need to cover, we need to understand that the households are getting smarter, so bottoms up households getting smarter, requiring higher bandwidths, higher speeds, to the use of smart technologies with smart poles and operation command and control center. Every utility getting integrated, we require very advanced technology network, both in wireless and wired modes. Secondly, we looked at that these technologies would require intervention on streets, so we should look at adopting smart poles where we can integrate all the sensors and whether it's security surveillance or environmental monitoring, and we should look at encouraging use of smart poles to minimize interventions of this ICT infrastructure coming on urban design. We also looked at that while there are lots of command and control centers being done across India as part of the Smart City mission, we should actually really make very effective integrated operations center by making use cases for each and every element of the operations that are being controlled through command and control center. One of the examples that was said that if you're trying to minimize the non-revenue water, then we should look at the entire chain of command from where how the non-revenue water can be maintained and controlled, rather than a command and control center being just a visualization tool. Coming to the IT and ICT architecture, I think Sir's experience has been very useful, the way he has worked across in Government of India and Government of Andhra Pradesh, building those larger system architectures, and he has recommended to use the India architecture, INDEA. This is a very comprehensive architecture which covers all the modules of the governance, including the IT and ICT architecture, and it's a very right time for us to start thinking about this governance and ICT architecture and build our model from scratch under this India architecture. One of the important elements of that is to form two governance boards, one for IT and ICT and one for the governance. Because now we're going to club governance of different departments under one roof, it's going to cause some disturbance, some emotional and power struggle between the departments. So it's best that we have a very effective governance board to create this architecture. So we recommend that we should start working towards an integrated planning of the entire ICT framework from now. Thank you.
I would only say it in two words, sir. Amaravati should be born digital. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Minister, dignitaries on the dais and the audience, I am not introducing the speakers because all of you have detailed profile books and also profiles are enclosed in the material that is available on the stage. So please do refer to them in case you would like to place the speaker. The next discussion is on transport and mobility. This panel had Rama, Junji Shibata, Professor S.L. Dingra, Askima Ghate, Robert Gallagher and Venkat Balasu. I request Robert and Venkat to just come up and give a quick update on the discussion on transport and mobility.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister and honorable dignitaries on the stage. And yesterday in the infrastructure, transport and mobility, we discussed about the proposals. What we proposed till date as an infrastructure development is at an advanced stage in the city now. And we requested all the delegates to explain what are the recommendations further to improve the things on the city, what we propose. So we put the questions for like how do we achieve maximum about 80% of public transport share? And how do we design roads and streets for improved non-motorized traffic? And what's the plan ahead for electric vehicles and upcoming trends in this thing? And how do we adapt mobility as a service and towards building TFL? In this regard, like I request Robert to explain the conclusions what we made on the yesterday's discussion, please.
Thank you. Honourable Chief Minister, distinguished guests and participants. Transport is one of the topics that everyone has an opinion on and everyone contributes to and is very often controversial. I feel our panel was pretty unanimous in the discussions and the conclusions. The first question was, can Amaravati achieve 80% public transport, or 70% in the central area, 70% across Amaravati? And the panel concluded, yes, this is a very challenging target, but it's achievable. If you look at some of the most advanced countries in the world, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Hong Kong, they have shares like this. So if you combining buses, walking, cycling as sustainable transport, 80% is achievable. It's a good target. But one of the big problems for achieving it is that initially Amaravati, the population density will be very low. It will require investment. The buses may be half empty in the first year or two. This will cost money. It requires courage and sticking at it to achieve it. So the going will be tough, but you can get there in the long run. Secondly, how to make the city good for non-motorized, meaning walking and cycling. The designs that we've seen over the last 2 days, the infrastructure design, is really first class. And when it's implemented, Amaravati will have one of the best infrastructure for walking and cycling in India, for sure, and comparable, probably better than many other world cities. But the panel felt that infrastructure alone is not going to achieve this high share of walking and cycling. You also have to consider how to encourage people, how to achieve behavior change. So there's many types of encouragement for walking and cycling, and the government and all the stakeholders need to get involved in this process of encouraging behavior change. Secondly, it also needs institutions to do this. If you're going to have encouragement and behavior change, you need the organizations to carry this through. We also remembered that next door to Amaravati is Vijayawada and Guntur. And when you look at the statistics, walking and cycling in these two cities is actually declining. People are going on to motorbike and a few are going onto cars. So Amaravati is not an island. It has to be integrated with Vijayawada and Guntur, and walking and cycling strengthened in these places as well as Amaravati. We looked at the question of electric vehicles and other upcoming trend, and some of the conclusions are listed in the paper. E-vehicles, very challenging, and there's questions about distribution, about charging. Vehicles can be expensive, a lot of questions, but e-vehicles are coming up around the world, and Amaravati can be part of that. Again, not Amaravati alone, but also in combination with the urban areas around it. Finally, we looked at how to adopt mobility as a service and the roadmap. By the roadmap, the question meant how to achieve a strong institution for guiding this transport. And Transport for London was mentioned as one example. If Amaravati is to be well integrated with Vijayawada, Guntur, and the surrounding region, the capital region, it needs a strong umbrella body. And that umbrella body has a double task, because not only does it have to plan and implement for the capital region, but it also has to build a new city. So if you're going to build a world-class institution, umbrella institution, that organization has a double role, capital city and the region. And in order to make it a success, it will require very strong institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert and Venkat. Honorable Chief Minister, the next session was on water, wastewater and stormwater. We had a large panel discussing this. Lo Antoine, Professor Jayakumar, Rajesh Adhyam, Professor Kazmi, Veera Adusumalli, and Sheetal Chinchinwade and Jamie Everett. I call on Jamie and Sheetal to please come and update you on what happened at that session.
Honorable Chief Minister, Minister and the dignitaries and my colleagues, we discussed majorly on the 4 issues related to water, wastewater and stormwater. The first one was commissioning of the systems in line with the growth of the city. It's basically infrastructure phasing. So what comes first and how can we commission the system? Similarly, the building resiliency with regard to quality and quantity of water, which is if we have only Krishna River as a source, how to diversify the water portfolio for other sources. Similarly, on the emerging trends in water treatment and ZLD concept, the industry reaction was sought, And the last one was ensuring the canals are also friendly public spaces. Means how can we bring people closer to the river, and the Singapore and Australia experiences were shared. So I request Jamie to go ahead with the recommendations and share the conclusions.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Chief Minister, panellists. A lot of the themes that we talked about was to harness best practice from around the world. It might be from Australia, where I'm from Singapore, or from other countries. The opportunity that's before us is to put those together and to scale them up at a city scale that's never been done before. The other opportunity is to get things right from the beginning. If we have a look at other cities, for example Singapore, we talked a lot about the challenge of having to retrofit best practices, to come back later and to put back the practices that are required. What we're proposing is practices that will bring sustainability and resilience and future-proof water supply, which we know is fundamental to a city. So if we have a look at the solutions on the slide that you can see, in terms of commissioning systems, we saw that the international trend is for smaller, modularised or decentralised local systems. And what that might mean is for wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants, we don't have to build them all at once. We can commission them in stages as the population grows and harness the ability to work over time, and what that does is save money. When we look at the question of resiliency, we talked about items of climate change, population growth, the uncertainties that we know are inherent in city planning. So we talked about incorporating that sort of information from the beginning, of not waiting until the climate changes, but to anticipate it now. Singapore talked about their experience of planning ahead and thinking, what do we need to do in 5 years? What do we need to do in 10 years? But then when they decide that, they do it now. They act immediately to be future-proof from the beginning. Another strong theme coming from my home city of Melbourne in Australia is diversity of water sources, not just relying on the Krishna River, using recycled wastewater, using stormwater, using groundwater, so that if there's a problem with one, you can turn to another and continue your 24/7 water supply. When we looked at emerging trends in water treatment, again we talked about what might be coming in the future and planning for that now, not waiting for those standards to come, but to build the specs now and what the high probability might be that we need higher standards. Other themes included resource recovery and using sludge as a fertiliser, seeing wastewater not so much as a waste problem but as a resource recovery problem, an opportunity to either generate revenue or to reduce the environmental footprint of the water system. Finally, when we look at canals as friendly public spaces, we adopt the ABC, the Active, Beautiful, Clean principles from Singapore. We say that this is best achieved when water, stormwater drainage and wastewater are all seen as one part of the urban water cycle, and the solutions are integrated solutions across. And that begins by having a single authority rather than 3 separate authorities, acting together and planning together. It also means that we should look at our drainage system not as concrete channels and as hard assets, but as natural assets, trees, greenery, flowing water, bring nature back into the cities and achieve much of the happiness that we've talked about already. And finally, incorporating things like bioswales and wetlands into the urban complex as natural features to let people congregate and to promote active lifestyles. So as I said, together, that's a collection of best practice that we get a chance to scale up at AMARAVATI and achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheetal and Jamie. Honourable Chief Minister, next topic was power and renewables. We had Shambhashiva Rao, Sethuraman Ganeshan, Chris Trott and Milan Marinkovic discuss this. I'll invite Chris and Milan to come forward and talk about the discussion that happened at this session.
Honorable Chief Minister, Ministers and other dignitaries and colleagues, this panel was having a very good opportunity to review. Basically, we started with reviewing of design, which was very well progressed, and a lot of things has been done. And we are happy to report that design has taken a very initiative and very innovative way of thinking. They have scrapped a lot of things which was done in the past in different ways, and they've moved in a different way. So it's a good way to do it. The few things which this panel has basically reviewed and had in mind is how this network which we are going to build for the city remain reliable, how to be smart, and what does it mean to be sustainable for the city, how does it feed it. And also one of the main thing and main theme here was how does it help India in overall to remain on track for the Paris Accords, which the India is one of the biggest contributor and also the most important members of that. So we can just bring the next slide. Looking at the sustainable and generally contribution in renewables, we see that the state is doing already very well in India, getting awards 3 years in a consent, so it's very good. But generally, the AMARAVATI state is blessed with a lot of sun, and you are going to harvest the sun is the best possible way. Theoretically, I'm saying theoretically, you have only on the rooftops of AMARAVATI, you can harvest about 50% of the overall demand. It's a huge number. Obviously, practically, you're not going to achieve that because of the technical constraints, but it's just give an initiative and direction where you should go. And that basically is just a matter of introducing and making it mandatory for the buildings in AMARAVATI to go this way. There are other technologies which will come very shortly, in 10 years, 15 years time, all vehicles, electrical and so on. We are having a great scale of newer technologies in battery systems and storage. And this city has opportunity to really implement them from the very beginning and to go and implement things which were really a dream for all engineers, electrical engineers and power engineers from the day the power has been invented. Storing energy, electrical energy, was a task which was never achieved on the industrial scale till recently. So this is now the opportunity for the AMARAVATI as a new city to come and do it from the day one. As a basic, power systems has not changed much. What has changed is add-ons and smart elements of it. And we are of opinion that those elements should be built from the day one, not retrofitting, no coming back and do it again. So this is basically the one thing which is the theme for the general power and energy distribution system. We have noticed that the city has implemented no-dig policy. It's a very noble and very good thing. However, it's come with some constraints, especially there is no plan on this world which has stuck to the plan from day one you implemented it to the end when you complete it. There is always changes. These policies put some constraints on you, so you have to basically allow a general spare capacities in this infrastructure to make it smooth and seamless as possible, because the plan will change. Market is driven. Market-driven plans are always changing. Somebody will want something else that you didn't plan at the day one. And one thing which is maybe on the government level, electrical engineers and power engineers and generally electrical networks, they like flat load. They don't want peaks, ups and down over 24-hour cycle. And there is an easy way to manipulate, if you like, the human behaviors to make it happen like this. And that's basically a daytime tariff. Currently, the system has a peak tariffs, so it's as a consumer, you take more, you are charged more, which is fine. But you still don't control when I'm going to use this energy as a home holder. But if you impose a daytime tariff, you can basically make for people sensitive to use the energy when you as a utility provider want. So this is relatively easy to implement if you just implement the smart components of the network, which we already recommend to do. So just controlling when the price of energy delivered will be different on a different daytime, you can achieve a lot. And finally, I'll pass the message to my colleague, who will talk about some sustainable element on the government sector.
Thank you, Milan. Honourable Chief Minister, Honourable Ministers, dignitaries, other colleagues, we just wanted to really emphasise that the great opportunity that comes with the leadership that you can show for the government complex with driving down the levels of carbon that are associated with the buildings and driving up the standards that the rest of the city can follow in terms of the technology, the deployment of renewables and other such things. As Milan has said, the 50% renewables on rooftops is an average across the city. We won't achieve that quite with the government complex, so we'll need also the support of the local and regional networks in terms of renewable energy. But taken together, we think it's a great opportunity for leadership through the public sector to be shown to the rest of the developments that come beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. The last session in the infrastructure module was on construction management. It had a large group of Sikandar Jain, Kamesh Rao, Krishna Mistala, Manish Chadda, Bharat Raj, Ramnath and Tom Rayburn talk about construction management. I request Tom and Ramnath to come forward to just share the key outcomes from that discussion. Thank you in advance for keeping this to 5 minutes.
Chief Minister, we covered these 3 areas. How do we ensure coordination amongst the various contractors and mechanisms to avoid delays? How do we ensure enforcement of worker welfare and minimize accidents on the site? And how do we minimize the impact of construction activities on local residents? Next slide. In order to coordinate among the various contractors and the mechanisms to avoid delays, there's really 3 parts before construction, and that is understanding the program schedule and maintaining a master integrated schedule. That ensures that you get sequencing right. Then we've already talked about BIM, but BIM is a mechanism that allows us to avoid clashes in the 3 dimensions, and it's very useful in coordinating contracts. And of course, pre-construction workshops. And when I say pre-construction workshops, in this context, we need to have contractors meeting with adjacent contractors so that we understand the interfaces and we avoid clashes there. And then the 4th piece is during construction. And in this case, we're going to have multiple constructors, thousands of trucks, lots of materials, and the need right now is for a site logistics plan which coordinates the routes and assigns routes so that the contractors aren't conflicting with each other. Our 3rd area was enforcement of worker welfare standards and minimizing accidents. Enforcement of health and safety and worker welfare is going to be important because there's going to be as many as between 20 and 30 labor accommodations on the site. The panel recommended that we come up with a standard for worker welfare and standards for the accommodations so that we can enforce from the program level and take care of our workers. We also need to make sure that they follow proper safety requirements in terms of protective equipment and so forth, and that needs to be overseen from the program level. So the panel recommended that we have a health and safety and worker welfare component under CRDA. Last population that we need to protect are the local residents. And we need to talk about, from the program level, dust control, noise, and so forth, and find alternate routes for our construction equipment so that we're not going through villages in a 24/7 operation and interfering with the residents or even having an accident with the residents. We also need to protect the environment and have some kind of spill protection program from the program level, understand where the fueling stations are and how they're protected, and protect the environment during the construction. Thank you, Chief Minister.
Thank you. So we then had a discussion, Honorable Chief Minister, on governance. as indicated, governance is an important topic because we might build the best infrastructure at the happiest city, but if it isn't operated well, it might all come to nothing. Governance, we had a very multifaceted panel, people from multilateral organizations, Singapore, a private infrastructure provider, and CRDA. We had on the panel Mr. Koo, Mats Anderson, SGK Kishore, Mr. Special Commissioner Mr. Ram Manohar, Manish Chedda, and Raghu Kesavan. I'll request Manish and Raghu to come forward to talk about the conclusions of the governance panel.
Honorable Chief Minister, members on the dais, members of the audience. So we had a very lively discussion on governance. We discussed were, the first one was, what is that institutional framework that we need to put in place to govern Amaravati? As part of that, we said, look, we already have CRDA. Now, in addition to CRDA, do we need to look at specialist utility companies to provide each of the different services? What about ULB? Are we going to establish another urban local body, other bodies for coordination with the state on transportation and such other areas? The second aspect that we discussed was the citizen engagement model. So in the citizen engagement model, we said, what is that systemic and proactive way that we will engage with the citizens? The second thing that we discussed there was saying, how do we ensure that, we are able to measure that we are delivering our promise to the citizens? Then we talked about corporate engagement. So how do we, nurture an ecosystem which attracts the best corporates? And how do we build that collaborative environment where new to market technologies can actually be seeded in Amaravati? The final aspect that we deliberated on was saying, what is this capacity building that is required for all these institutions? We want to provide the best of services. We will need capacity and competent people. How do we do that? So there were two overarching themes that emerged. One overarching theme was saying, when we talk about governance, we have to first define the principles of that governance. Is it on transparency? Is it on trust? Combination of the two? And for that to happen, then public sector integrity becomes a cornerstone of that. The other aspect, and I think very interestingly, was that we said Amaravati is a greenfield city. So here's a chance to experiment a little bit on the governance side. So we should use that opportunity to experiment. I'll just ask Raghu to continue as well.
Thanks, Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Ministers, and distinguished colleagues. So just carrying forward from that, so on the institution side, as was discussed, we were talking about what are the institutions that will actually run and operate and maintain the city services. So we discussed at two levels. One is the utility companies and the Amaravati city government. And what are some of the specific recommendations was, one is, of course, the utility companies need to be underpinned by a strong policy implementation and a public good focus, by including the poor. They also need to have an integrated approach, integration at two levels. One is across sectors, and that's where the experience of Singapore government was shared. For instance, if there's so 2-3 recommendations which the panel made was, one is, can we develop a strategic plan for trying to set up which utility companies we need to set up going forward for the operation and maintenance. This to be underpinned by a user charge policy, which the government of Andhra Pradesh should formulate for the urban services in Amaravati. The second big area was with regard to Amaravati city government, which will come in future. So here again, this is in the spirit of once in a lifetime opportunity and innovation. Can we look at any international models and best practices on having a different sort of Amaravati city government? While drafting the act, can we look at making it different from other city ULB acts in the country? And so that is another sort of specific activity to be taken up going forward in the immediate future. In terms of the corporate engagement, there was considerable discussion on for these urban services, what is the best mix of public and private? Should they be joint venture companies? Should they be public utilities, which then in turn contract in private sector to a variety of contractual arrangements? It could vary from sector to sector, but still that was an important topic for discussion, and we will have to design it for each of these utility companies, which when we have business plan for them. And the second thing was on trying to have a platform which could be very similar to what we are having today, which can give a periodic platform for providing inputs from industry to share with the Amaravati city government and the government of Andhra Pradesh on what sort of innovations are happening, how do we bring that in purely in terms of knowledge and sharing. So that's a sort of a continuous process of industry interaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chief Minister, we will now switch to talking about economic development. Given the infrastructure plans are in place and a lot of the works have been tendered out, the real priority now shifts to triggering the theme cities that have been incorporated in the master plan of Amaravati. 2 of those cities are anyway triggered through government action, whether it's the government and administration city or the justice city. It was the other 6 cities that we spent time on. To start with, we looked at the media city. There the panel included Hassan, Mr. Prabhakar Rao, Rajiv J, Ravi Korukonda, Jaykumar and Ankit Gupta. I'll call upon Jaykumar, Hassan and Ankit to just come and brief the Chief Minister on the key conclusions from that panel. Gentlemen, thank you in advance for keeping this to 5 minutes.
Chief Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I think the world is going through a booming in media, technology and telecom. And maybe the development of Amaravati is in the middle of that booming. So the media city in this case can benefit from that booming, capitalizing on a few sectors in the media industry and technology industry, and capitalizing also on the resources and people. You have the youngest generation in the world. So this could be a good combination in launching a number of initiatives in media industry and technology industry, and attract this young generation to work in Amaravati. And when I say attract, could be attracting from the local industry, locally from Amaravati or from India. So if we look to these areas, we focused on mainly 4 pillars. One of them is the over-the-top or OTT. We're talking here about content creation and content delivery. The content creation, we're starting by highly professional content to user-generated content, from long format to short format. Amaravati Media City could be the hub of cloud platforms that can host all locally generated content with the local language, which is maybe missing in the market. This could be a huge opportunity to launch a lot of initiatives and bring all the talents, all the producer, director to create this content. The other part is the animation and VFX, which is also a trend supported by the high computing system around the world, the technology of computer systems, helping to advance the animation and VFX. And I think Amaravati can capture
maybe more than 80% of that business which is outsourced outside India. The other part, which is also well known, the digital advertisement and the social media. And everybody know that this is a topic that every single young and youth is involved, he's aware, he has the knowledge, and easy to learn. So we have an opportunity to have a platform where people can launch small SMEs companies to do digital marketing and to do all the social media activities. We don't want to ignore the telecom. The telecom is the key enabler for all the platforms. You want to create a gateway for Amaravati to the rest of the world. Today, the business, all the media business is virtual business. And you can do a lot of work from abroad. And you can request a lot of media services from abroad. So if we open the gate through the telecom network, the platforms, we can create business for Amaravati for the rest of the world. All this, of course, they capitalize or they need enabler. And the enablers are the talents and the quality of living. Talents could be locally outsourced. When I say again locally outsourced, I'm talking from the Indian market. There is a lot of resources and qualified people available that can come train others. Even the quality of living, it's important, because if you want to bring anybody from any other city, he want to come to a place where he can bring his family, his kids, he wants schools, he wants university. Can we go to the second? Now, as action plan, we think that it's important to launch a media-focused integrated business park by attracting one of the developer who can develop offices and residential area, entertainment area, because you want to build also an ecosystem around the business facilities. Announce financial incentives for media tenants, similar to what happened in Dubai, in UK, in Amsterdam. They all offer this incentive to attract investors and qualified talents to come and come to the city. Attract, of course, studio and post-production operators by offering land with very competitive price and services and regulations, very easy regulations to operate. And of course, we don't want to ignore the resources, which is today I saw the universities. You already have a university that can start really graduating resources ready to operate wherever this media city is available.
Honorable Chief Minister, the panel sincerely felt that there is a large opportunity to build Amaravati as an AVGC hub. Obviously, we need a policy initiative and a couple of other themes which the panel felt are probably low-hanging fruits. One thing which the panel and the audience were basically saying, the district is actually the base of a plethora of talent, which is very, very important for this industry. So a finishing school and a center of excellence and an incubation center for this would be a big booster for this. Another opportunity is an OTT platform and a go-to destination for the global Telugu diaspora as an own OTT platform. That could be a very interesting one. Learning is a very, very important aspect in the world, all over the world. We can definitely bring in large corporations like Google, Facebook and all based on learning. India-based IPs, intellectual properties based on Indian stories. Amaravati could be a hub for that. Another opportunity is on the child safety. This is a major, major concern all over the world immediately. So this Amaravati can basically promote this as a child-safe content creation place. This could resonate with the large corporations around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next theme city was Sports City. We had Special Chief Secretary